The White Pill is available now at whitepillbook.com. This episode is brought to you by Patriot Gold. Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. We have with us a man who needs no introduction, Alex Jones. Alex, we're recording this Monday. It's airing on Wednesday. We were going to record on Friday. We had a little bit of miscommunication, and I had this very long intro for you about your book. Since Friday, so many things have happened. I saw you have another book. You're back on Twitter. You've done the Tucker Carlson show. Let's talk about the Twitter thing first, I guess. Are you surprised that you're back? What do you think this means, if anything? I just want to hear your thoughts quickly.
I was surprised because they've demonized me so bad, even though 99% of it wasn't true, that I thought with all Elon's problems, he wasn't going to do this. But they've messed with him so much, I know you know him, that he said, go F yourself, as we all know. And I was able to interview him, and he interviewed me for 2.5 hours yesterday. And we're like on the same page. So I'm in Twilight Zone in a good way right now. And so I'm very, very excited about what's happening.
I've always been kind of taken aback that you're public enemy number one, because here's the thing. It's very easy to caricature Alex Jones as, if there's one person or one type of people that you might want to ban, it's people who provoke violence, right? Your entire MO is do not engage in violence, because the government will take any slight bit of violence or display of force as an excuse to come down 100 times harder. You talk about this constantly. There was the documentary that I saw about you where you were at January 6th. You're like, guys, do not let things get out of control. This is what they want. And yet you're caricatured as this kind of violent insurrectionist. Do you think that you being reinstated, and do you think basically that so-called cancel culture has reached its peak? Because now not only is it hard to cancel people, they're getting uncanceled.
Well, what's happened is the old dinosaur media ignored the public's voice on social media. And It's not that Trump support was perfect or Trump was perfect. It's that until Trump won with that landslide fluke they didn't believe was going to happen, they were arrogant and said, we don't care about social media. We're just selling advertising there, so what? When they saw that and Trump win, they came in with both feet to try to stomp on it and clamp it down. And then their response, censoring not just me, but hundreds of millions of people here in the U.S. and billions around the world, pissed people off and made them want alternative news even more. So it's not that I'm perfect or some fount of all answers. It's just that they recognize that I'm certainly not establishment. So yeah, the worm has turned. I think we've crossed the Rubicon. Yeah. The Great Awakening is here. And now Biden comes out with the Secretary of State and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs and the Secretary of Defense and says, well, if you don't give us $106 billion more for the Ukraine war, your sons and daughters will be dying within months. So now they're holding a nuclear war gun to our head, which is so crazy. I didn't even see that coming. So yeah. And I talked to Elon yesterday. He said, yeah, they're total warmongers. They're insane. I'm totally against the globalists now. So it's not us that's radical. It's not us that are even revolutionary. This is a survival mechanism at this point to just say, whoa, we're done. We don't care about liberal, conservative, all these labels. We want peace. We want prosperity. We don't want World War III. And then I've been so demonized, I'm not even that good. I mean, I'm okay, but oh, this guy's the most demonized. Well, let's just hold him up. Trump has the same thing going on. He's not perfect, but he's way ahead in all the polls because people are like, well, if the establishment says I can't have this guy, I want this guy. So the system has no support. It's totally collapsed. But now, like Napoleon or Hitler, they go to Russia to die, and they're doing, history repeats. And now here we are again.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is very interesting, let's talk about your book, because I have this weird quirk where I read every book that I own. So when I was on your show, you gave me a signed copy. I got to have that for the library. and I wasn't looking forward to it because a lot of these books are just copy and paste of someone's show, right? So if I've seen the show, and I know what you talk about, I didn't think I was going to learn anything. This book was absolutely excellent, and I was surprised how much I learned. I was surprised how much I enjoyed it. You did a superb job on it, and let me tell people why they should pick up this book, and then we can talk about your next one in a second. People, your show, you're very performative, and you have to be to some extent. If you're talking about this kind of dark stuff day in and day out, and I had to do the same thing with my book in North Korea, if you don't make it entertaining, people tune out because at the end of the day, it's just like, I can't handle all this demonic energy. And if any, it's also because what could I do about it? So, but this book, the entire tone of this book is fine. I'm Alex Jones. I think Bigfoot did 9/11. I'm crazy. Whatever. The point is, this is what these people are advocating using their own words. So you don't have to like me. You don't have to think Alex Jones has any common sense. Explain to me what you think it means. And you're the opposite of conspiracy theorists in this book because conspiracies, by definition, are done secretly and behind closed doors. And you're like, this is out in the open. They're publishing it in their books, on their website, and in their videos. None of this is secret at all. Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, I realize that I'm always very direct, and I was sitting back when we first wrote the book a year and a half ago, the first book, the new one just came out, and I said, I should do this the way I would talk to family or friends at dinner, not bombastic, not aggressive, which I never planned to do that. I just, at the time I'm exhausted, so I'm on air. It's easier to get hyped up than,
Sure.
than just be, it's harder to be, enduring than it is just be bombastic. So my crutch is just go Godzilla and bull in the china cabinet. But then I said, look, I'll write notes, I'll record things that are positive, and then your ghostwriter, who was Ken Heckenlively, will kind of boil it down. So the last book was like 800 pages, 600 pages long when it was done. They boiled it down to 200 and something. The next book's 400, boiled down from 800. And I just did it in, more of, because my listeners all tell me, we love the old Alex that would make jokes and be fun. I've been like that in 5-6 years. So I tried to bring that to both books and exactly what you said, say, hey, tell me crazy. This doesn't sound too good. This is what they said. And they had lawyers vet all of it, double check all the quotes on both books. And so, I'm just betting on humanity saying, this is crazy totalitarian stuff. Forget who I am, but also using my controversy to sell books. Am I the radical? Because I don't have the nuclear launch codes. Yeah. And I'm not the one doing all this. Will you please help me save the world? Because I'm not going to save it. We're going to save it together. And so that's basically what we tried with the books.
So one of the things that I learned from this that, I kind of had been naive about is you talk a lot about transhumanism, right? And I thought to myself, okay, maybe this is one of those boogeyman words. And when I thought of transhumanism, I saw a video not that long ago of people who had Parkinson's and they couldn't eat like a bowl of soup, right? So they had this kind of spoon that even though the person's shaking, the spoon is perfectly still and they can eat the soup and kind of have their quality of life and dignity back. And things like eyeglasses, you're not born with eyeglasses, you put them on. I'm like, what does Alex Jones have against transhumanism? Maybe he's a bit of a Luddite, but that's the thing, how these people work, right? You and I are both anti-fascist. America's an anti-fascist country. We lost a lot of men fighting Hitler in World War II, but being anti-fascist and being Antifa are not all the same thing. So they will take a term that in the context I said is like, who's going to argue against technology helping someone with Parkinson's? No one would be against that. But their definition of transhumanism is not at all what I was just saying. Can you break down what they mean by transhumanism?
Yeah, I mean, you got to go back to Aldous Huxley in 32. He wrote Brave New World. His brother was the head eugenicist, and then he changed to transhumanism. My uncle was in a motorcycle accident, was having seizures for years, was almost dead in a wheelchair. He didn't just get a Vivek, he got the nerve stimulator first. It helped him. So about 5 years ago, he got an actual brain chip. He's up walking around, looks 20 years younger. It's wonderful. If you've got a brain injury, baby, take brain chips. Yeah. It's wonderful. I'm not against it. I don't want school kids told you got to take brain chips like Klaus Schwab says to go to school. He actually says that. You'll all have chips in your brain to even have a job. So I'm against this making us take brain chips, but if I'm in a car wreck and break my back, give me a brain chip right now if I can walk. In fact, I'm demanding it. So I'm all about innovation. And then they lie and say, yeah, you're Luddites you're against technology. No, no, no. They're trying to replace us with this, not make us better. And so that's basically one of the points we make in the book, in both books dealing with transhumanism. Transhumanism, the way they sell it, is a replacement of humanity, not an empowerment of humanity. So I think that's basically what we're dealing with.
The other thing you talk about is who's the one who's going to have the control of the on and off switch. So if we saw during COVID Jimmy Kimmel, who was crying understandably about his son having an illness and now, treating his son, he wanted other people to have socialized health care as a result of that. You can wrap your head around this, but he's joking blatantly about, oh, you didn't get vaccinated and now you're in the hospital dying. Well, too bad. And everyone applauds. And it's like, whoa, whoa. You have people right in front of the camera telling you that if you're hesitant to take a vaccine that is new to the market, where it's impossible for any of us to say long term it's going to be safe because it hasn't existed for long term. The human beings are not gods. We don't know what the long term effects are. What would have been cars or any technology? You have to wait it out and see what happens. The thing is, if they're this glib about like, oh, if you don't get vaccinated and you're dying in the hospital, too damn bad. It's not that much of a stretch to be like, all right, you got this brain chip and we've got the remote control. Well, if you're not being obedient, let's see how long you're going to have access to this brain chip.
And so let's unpack what you just said, because I have 100 points on that. Under federal law passed a year ago, all cars being manufactured have a kill switch on them. Now you can say, oh, that's great for drunk drivers. No, they're going to use it for bad. So what I say is, if you opt in to a full spectrum of chips, if you've got issues, Parkinson's, whatever, that's great. You decide to get the chip. We don't want one mandated chip that is controlling everybody. And that's what Klaus Schwab and the system is basically promoting. So that's exactly what they're doing. And it's a lie, but it's also a panacea. They say, just accept this new global government and we're going to do all this. But let's go back to this. It's a cult to say we have an experimental shot, no testing. You open up the bottle of it. The data sheet is clear for the first time since the FDA was founded. There's nothing on it. You're asking me to step into the dark blindfolded and wander around on the highway. That's a cult. And so that's why I reject it. I know inoculation is a real science. There's a real disease out there. You've got some tested shot, or even it's not tested. I make the option to take it. That's my issue. But to try to make me take something that they admit's experimental in the documents, but say it's tested and effective on the news 3 years ago when they rolled it out, when it wasn't tested, and now they admit doesn't protect you, is just incredible. So what they want is mindless obedience through fear, because that's why I loved your book, White Pill. I was even talking to the security guy here today, one of our armed guards. He's like, oh, I loved White Pill, or it was yesterday. It's so optimistic, it's so good. And I was talking to some of the other crew. I was talking to Chase Geiser about it. It's true. There are so many white pills out there if we take the white pills. But we can eat the black pill, the red pill, the blue pill, or the white pill. It's our actions that are going to manifest which pill we take. So if people wake up, I'm white pilled. If they don't, I'm black pilled. It's one thing to red pill people. You hope they make the right decisions. So many of you red pill become black pilled instead of white pilled, and realizing how much power they've got.
Yeah, let's talk about the car thing, because I think this is a great example of how people can realize how it's not even a slippery slope, it's an elevator shaft, right? So let's go back to, the Patriot Act, right? So the Patriot Act was sold in the wake of 9/11 with the idea was, look, we promise the only people we're going to torture is terrorists. And we're only going to torture terrorists when someone's got like a secret code and a nuke's about to go off in New York. And come on, you really got to get that secret code out of him. And it's kind of this, the show 24. And that's never happened. They were torturing people who they didn't even know were terrorists in Guantanamo Bay.
It was a mind game to get you to give up your values, because once you did, the floodgates are open.
Yeah, but then what I've pointed out to conservatives since, and now it's clicked in their heads, is we live in a country right now where politicians and powerful people will tell you with a straight face, if you're a member of the NRA, you're a terrorist. So very quickly, if the law says this will only be used for terrorists, they'll be like, all right, terrorists, someone I don't like.
And Biden, when he first got in, their first press conference was, MAGA are terrorists.
Yes.
They're the main threat. White supremacists are the main threat. Then they defined in that national security memorandum that's public, You look it up. It's like a blue thing with white stars on it. Official policy of Biden. If you question elections, if you question lockdowns or forced inoculations, and a bunch of other things, you are a white supremacist. So we're like, oh, they're just saying white supremacists are the main threat, which they aren't, but I don't support them. Then you just, okay, screw the white supremacists. But then it defines white supremacists as anybody opposing the agenda.
Right.
And now they're claiming in FBI memos that came out 3 months ago, the MAGA white supremacists are going to hack the power grid with the Russians and bring it down before the election. And I'm like, that is theater, that is fiction, the most fantastical load of bull I've ever heard. But the fact that the Pentagon and the FBI is promoting that means that's on the agenda. So they want to outlaw their political opposition. Trump's not perfect. I have major problems with him. But I got a bigger problem with them indicting him and trying to take him off the ballot and saying we can't vote for him. And then I got a bigger problem with saying his supporters are the biggest terror group, when on average, Trump supporters are one of the most docile groups there is.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how you see this, all these progressives, you know, who are influencers talking about they're scared of, if Trump becomes president, that he is going to incarcerate his political opponents, while literally he's facing multiple felonies. And I think this is one it's things are coming to a head historically, where maybe possibly, in my opinion, because the news cycle is getting faster and faster, that instead of having one story on Monday in January and the next story in February, right, you have them within one day. And just they're talking out of both sides of their minds simultaneously because things are happening so fast. This whole thing about
Michael,
go ahead, sorry.
No, I actually wrote notes. That was the one thing I wanted to say. It's right here. Was look at the projection. Look at the inversion. Yeah. Trump has said he doesn't want to arrest Hillary, gets back in. Trump, and I'm not saying Trump's perfect, but Trump has said, I don't want to arrest my opponents. I want to make America great again. I want to turn the economy on. They're the ones trying to take him off the ballot all over the country. They're the ones with all the indictments. They're the ones saying all of our political opposition are potential terrorists. And then they say in the Washington Post and everywhere, we may have to assassinate him. You know, what if he gets assassinated? Maybe it's good. He's Hitler. The guy's got Jewish family and is hyper pro-Israel. That is not even real. So he's Hitler and he's a dictator. But when we have an oligarchy, we already have a plutocracy. We already have a bureaucracy that is literally trying to cement surveillance, censorship, and control, and it's total inversion. So if I saw any of that from Trump, I would be against him. And I'm already pissed about the shot and, you know, Jared Kushner and a bunch of stuff. I'm not, you know, with Trump, I like hold my nose. I'll just be honest. But I see the whole establishment against him while saying he's doing what they're doing. And I'm like, you wanted me to gaslight and drink the Kool-Aid. I just can't do it. So then I'm very frustrated because they almost force me to support Trump when I just want to support stopping the current regime from World War III.
Folks, I'm curious to hear your thoughts as to Vivek Ramaswamy and how he nuked neocon Nikki Haley at the debate last week. What was your reaction to that?
Oh my God, he just mopped the floor with her. He sat there and said, for those that didn't see it, because it's mainstream media, almost no ratings, unless you're a news hound like Michael Malice or Alex Jones. And he says, okay, name me 3 regions in the Russian-held areas of Ukraine. Couldn't say Crimea, couldn't say Donbass. And she literally went like all scared, and because she would have shot right back for like 30 seconds, like, and again, and he goes, and you say, by the way, that I don't like you because you're a woman. BS, man. You are a corrupt defense contractor that had no defense background. Talk about Hunter Biden being hired for gas pipelines with no petroleum geology or background. This is like hiring a 8-year-old to do brain surgery. They're like, why are you on all these boards? Why'd you make $8 million in the last couple of years? And she just goes and looks for the moderators to shut it down. And that's how, and then that little donor corner over there, and Ramaswamy would say, oh, look, he won all the first 3 debates. But in that 4th debate or 5th or whatever it is, I think it's the 4th, he literally like grand slammed, royal flush, hole in one. He destroyed, and people say, well, maybe he's not good because he was in biotech, whatever. He's a smart guy, he's in business. The point is, you don't say the things Ramaswamy said, Vivek Ramaswamy, and ever have the globalists leave you alone. They're the most fickle, arrogant people. He mopped the floor with them. He devastated Chris Christie. He devastated the Ron DeSantis. He devastated her. It was devastating.
I was not that long ago. There's a movie called Police State by Dinesh D'Souza. I went to see the premiere at Mar-a-Lago. I had him on the show, and I got to tell you, Alex, I was completely shocked because Dinesh is kind of like king of the boomer cons. He's very much a mainstream conservative in that regard, very much within the Overton within the Republican Party. I saw this movie, and it was straight up Alex Jones stuff. One of the points he made, and this is Dinesh D'Souza, he told the story, which was true. There was some college kid who got radicalized. He became like a Muslim extremist. And I think it was either FBI or CIA. I'm sure you know. They sat him down. I think it was FBI. And they were trying to encourage him to kind of make something happen. They're like, look, we give you money and we can help you recruit people. And if, in Dinesh's words as the narrator, he's like, yes, this kid was like a crazy nut, but they're the ones who empowered him. First of all, to have a conservative just be like dismissing some crazy nut was just amazing. But to have the idea of a conservative talking about how our own government often takes these radical but powerless kids and tries to make them do something, to have him say that with a straight face, to have that now be in the Overton win the Republican Party, does that give you this a sense of validation?
Well, let me go back to this. I was teasing you that time, and I've known you for a long time, when you actually got up and almost attacked me when we were on Tim Pool's show. And I'm like, no, the police are great, Michael, and everything they do is perfect. And that was the day I did, I'm a gorilla. And you got really pissed because obviously I know that's not true. They're just a tool of whoever's in power. Right. Some are good, some are bad. Yes. And you were like really getting mad. I was teasing you, and I said, hey, I'm joking. You turned red, you got up because you like me, and you were like, dude, you're now a fascist. I was joking. But yeah. I mean, Dinesh D'Souza, I haven't seen the new movie, but I've seen a transcript and some of the stuff in it. This is the reality. And the truth is the federal police are against us. So I'm not demonizing them individually, but to have mainline Republicans have a come to Jesus moment after he was put in prison for nothing, that, hey, no, the police aren't God. They're a tool of the state. Yes. And like George Washington said, government's like fire, a dangerous servant, a fearful master. And so that's why it's going to be incredibly limited as we wither the state, not in a Lenin-esque way, but a libertarian way. And so, yeah, I mean, that's where we are. And Republicans have finally stopped what the Q thing did, worshiping intelligence agencies, worshiping black ops, worshiping special ops. Listen, a lot of my family on both sides were top of their classes, the top of their classes. They had, quarterback positions in major football teams in college and volunteered for Vietnam and whole 9 yards. And they all came back and said, force is evil. The government's evil. We need to limit the force. Our government's run by evil. Power corrupts absolutely. Power corrupts absolutely. And then I see this sycophantic worship. And I've had family in command of operations against Russians in Eastern Germany, in command of major operations in Iran-Contra, in command of hit squads, wiping people out in the United States. I'm not bragging. It's actually shameful. And they all, to a man, told me at the end when they were on their deathbeds that the government's evil, it was wrong, and they got out of it. The lie is nobody gets out of the CIA. No, most people do, actually. And so, yeah, we have a rotting, out-of-control government. The government is not America. The ideals that made us great and made us better than the other countries, not that we were much better, but what we were aspiring to made us great. And this sycophantic Q crap that, intel and special ops, they're the most lied to, brainwashed people. I have callers go, well, what's your secret sources telling you? Secret sources, I can go out and observe what's going on. I don't get any information from people in the military. Nothing against the military in general, but the Army Special Operations, any of that. They are the most controlled, brainwashed people. There are a lot of good people in there that leak stuff, but no, I get it from organic research and what's going on. And my family told me, the government's hijacked, it's our enemy, we got to abolish it 40 years ago.
Yeah, it kind of has parallels to the Catholic Church, where I have a lot of Catholic friends, and I'm sure you do as well. And they're very strong in their faith. And when they see Pope Francis and the kind of crap he's pulling, and they see what's going on in the upper echelons of the Catholic Church, like some of them can't even talk about it. They're just so kind of devastated because they have this ideal, which is a good ideal of this kind of church was going on for thousands of years. You have ceremonies, and when you say the Latin Mass, someone said this 1,000 years ago in Rome, and you kind of have
Oh,
this sense of
Latin
community.
Mass is beautiful.
Right.
Catholic ceremony is beautiful.
But when you look at what's happened now, they're just like, how is this, the same thing? And it's the same thing with the US government. You have this idea of George Washington, liberating Eastern Europe and Central Europe. And it's hard for people to reconcile this vision of the American government as this force of freedom, both at home and abroad, with what has happened now. And I think more and more people, it's a hard pill to swallow, but they are swallowing it, especially older people. It's tough for them to realize, wait a minute, this is not what it was when I was a kid.
And it's not America that's overall bad. It's like if you're on a
Yeah.
plane and a hijacker hijacks it and puts
Right,
on the
yeah.
captain's uniform, he's not the captain, he's a hijacker. America was the best house in a bad neighborhood. We did change the world. People did aspire to us, but we've not become that. We're now a global corporate BlackRock empire launching wars everywhere, human trafficking, all this evil, and it masquerades in the uniform of our country. It's not our country. Stop worshiping it. Admit it's a fraud and then reform it, take it over, and cut it down to size because it's a cancer.
Something else that just about the Dinesh question, like if you talk to people even just 10 years ago, which is not that long ago, and told them that there was this plot to kidnap Governor Whitmer of Michigan, but this plot was fomented by agents of the intelligence community, and they're the ones at fault. That's Alex Jones tinfoil hat territory. But now we're at a point where not only is that acknowledged, it's reported by mainstream outlets. Are you gladdened to see how much people have come around to what you've been preaching for years?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gladdened to see it, but it's because we've been taken down so far. I mean, they've been caught in so many lies.
Yeah.
Things have gotten so egregious that I don't want to be proven right anymore because I know how bad it's about to get of my other predictions. I want to be proven wrong. I want to put the brakes on right now and say we're not having nuclear war and we're not collapsing the economy. And we're going to, because even if they try to stabilize things at this point, it's going to be a wild ride. But the direction they're going is Napoleon, Hitler. I mean, you can just see it. You can smell it, Michael. This is not good. I mean, I'm a tough guy. I want to think I'm a tough guy. I have nightmares about this. I get stomach ulcers over it because there's this thing of it's going down. You see the totalitarian fingerprints. You see the totalitarian signature. And you got a family and people, and there's no reason. And it's going to destroy the establishment. I don't want to kill the elite. I want them to stop it. But they're just megalomaniacal. They didn't get the power themselves. It was given to them.
Yep.
And so you realize this isn't a runaway train. We have crazy people driving it at 500 miles an hour over a broken bridge. And you're just like, stop. And they're like, no, I'm in charge. Okay, well, then at least slow down and just listen. You just stop the train, stop. They're like, no, I'm not stopping. And you're just like, all right, then you people are just, I don't even know what to do at this point. Because let me tell you, I got a lot of dread, Michael. And I'm not depressed. I'm so alive now. I've got all this optimism because I see the good. But good is not driving the train other than our decisions, which we're winning the culture war. We're winning hearts and minds. But still, the whole train looks up at the conductor or at the guy and says, please stop. And he says, no, Russian agents. And you're like, dude, I'm not a Russian agent. Or they say, no, white supremacist. You're like, I'm not a white supremacist. Well, no, racist. You're like, just stop. Just stop. It's like this hard on. Oh, they got to beat the Russians. Oh, they got to beat the Chinese. Oh, we're America, the State Department. We're going to show everybody. And they can't wipe their own asses.
Yeah, that's the thing. I always say the enemy class is not composed of impressive people. But the other point, to your point, is they're not going to go down without a fight, right? These people have their status, they have their wealth, they have their power. They just have a sense of feeling important. And to expect them, in the sake of good, a word which is often meaningless to them, that they're just going to be like, you know what, you're right. I want what's best for everyone. This is not what motivates them. And when people talk about conspiracy theories, I just put in these terms. I go, is it your belief that international elites who are extremely wealthy and powerful feel more allegiance to one another than their nation of origin? And when you put in those terms, everyone's like, of course, like that's like a textbook lefty look at the world. And it's like, yeah, so why are you surprised that the people in charge in France, in Germany, in China, and in the United States would try to sit down and work together as they did during COVID, then think that like their big concern is America or the Chinese people, or the French people, or just humanity in general? It's just nonsensical.
And that's the problem, is it is a classic leftist argument. You read Lenin, which I've read multiple times, 90% of it's genius and true. His solution is wrong. Right. So the left's like, oh, we have powerful elites together screwing us. Let's centralize control. Who do you think has control of that? You just made it 100 times worse. So it's decentralization. It's real competition. That is the answer to this, and just admitting that this is crazy. This is crazy.
Guys, gold has soared past $2,000 an ounce. Wars in Israel and Ukraine, and there are rate cuts on the table. They're fueling gold's meteoric rise. Deutsche Bank, UBS, Bank of America, JP Morgan, they're all forecasting sizable rate cuts in an election year. And Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan and Larry Fink of BlackRock both point out similarities to the 1970s. To remind you all, in 1979, we had the Iran hostage crisis, we had war in the Middle East, and major U.S. cities were in disarray and stagflation. And gold went from $158 an ounce in 74 to $850 an ounce in 1980. Meanwhile, our national debt is skyrocketing ever higher, and there's a direct correlation to the national debt and price of gold. In 2020, the U.S. debt was $23 trillion, gold was $1,500 an ounce, and now the debt is $33 trillion, and gold is over $2,000 an ounce. And Trump warned us that the US dollar no longer being the world standard will be our greatest defeat in 200 years. So, folks, call the proud Americans of the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Mention my name, that's Michael Malice, and you'll always get best-in-class service from Patriots protecting Patriots. Patriot Gold Group has the no-fee-for-life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the no-fee-for-life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Just call 888-505-9845 to get a free investor guide, or even easier, go to malicegold.com. Patriot Gold is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer 7 years in a row. So call 888-505-9845 for a free investor guide, or even easier, just go to malicegold.com. Folks, Michael Malice here, terrible author, horrible person on Twitter, and yes, sheath underwear model. Do you want to get inside my pants? Well, you can with Sheath underwear. What's great about Sheath is their dual pouch technology. They've got one pouch for one part of your male anatomy, another pouch for another part of your male anatomy. The first time I put them on, I'm like, what is this crap? But then I realized these are the most comfortable underwear I've ever worn. I wear them every single day. It was developed by Bobby, who was an Iraq vet. So you know things get uncomfortable down there when you're in the desert. And I've designed my own pair. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use promo code Malice, you get 20% off, and you could start one step closer to becoming an underwear model just like myself, but not as much of a terrible person like myself. Go to sheathunderwear.com, use promo code Malice, get 20% off today. What's great about this underwear is that it keeps you cool in the hot weather, and it keeps you snug and secure in any situation. And there's something a little subversive about being, like, let's say, on a date or a job interview, and knowing that your underwear is cupping your you-know-what downstairs. Sheathunderwear.com, promo code Malice for 20% off. Let's get back to the show. One of the things I also learned from this book is you constantly talk about the globalists. It's become kind of like, the globalist, Alice Jones, the globalist. And I had you on my show previously. I asked you who the globalists were. You break down so well in this book who the globalists are, how they got to the position of power. It's not simply people who have an ideology, like you could say conservatives. That could mean anyone from you to Ben Shapiro to Donald Trump. These are three different very different people. This is a specific self-organizing population who identify themselves with one another, have meetings, and have policy papers and issue books. Can you talk about the origins of globalism in the sense that you mean? Because you break it down very well in this book.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a long story, but this is all mainline history, folks. At the end of World War II, there was a lot of Nazi power. They'd robbed everything. They had banks all over the world. They were really a robbing organization. It was all about money. And so they had money in the U.S., all over Europe, all over Asia, all over Latin America, all over Switzerland. And so they set up the Bilderberg Group to kind of make a deal with the British Empire. They brought the Nazis over, Operation Paperclip. So it's not a Nazi conspiracy. It was just a group of political cutthroat, like Spectre and James Bond, that wanted to come over to us to fight the Russians. And Ukraine's part of that today. I'm not for what Russia's doing. Russia's not perfect either, but it's literally the Nazi stay-behind networks from World War II that make up the Azov Battalion and the SS officer getting praised in Canada. And we're like, why is this happening? Well, that's who this is. So these groups come over here, and the Bushes have a bunch of the hidden Nazi money, and there's all this other money, and you got the Trotskyites run over here, and they create the neocons. You have all these international groups that failed.
Wait, I got to interrupt you because this is something there's something very important when you talk about. So I don't think conservatives understand that a huge branch of conservatism were formed by Trotskyites. And what Trotskyites means there was a big power struggle in Russia after Lenin died between Stalin and Trotsky. Trotsky got exiled, and he died in Mexico. Stalin managed to assassinate him. Many of these followers of Trotsky, meaning followers of like the second in command of the Russian Revolution, hardcore Bolshevik communists, later became conservatives. But their version of conservatism is not your version of conservatism. It's not the Donald Trump version of conservatism. It's not even the Ben Shapiro version of conservatism. It is a very specific thing, and to call it conservatism is almost kind of a misnomer. But they're very much an entity with roots ideologically in the Russian Revolution. And this is something that's kind of swept under the rug, but this is a big deal because they're extremely influential within the Republican Party to this day. And this is one of the reasons why they're so loose with their advocacy for war, because from the beginning, their idea was you win by killing a lot of people and imposing your will upon them.
Well, perfectly said. I'm glad you're a historian. Everybody knows Michael Malice's stats. So for listeners, I want to explain. The Nazis' last base was not Brazil or Argentina. It was Ukraine and a few other areas. And so we're not fighting Nazis today, but it's politically powerful families with a bunch of stolen money, mainly from Jews and others, that are used to taking over and ruling. So that's one group. And you've got Trudeau's deputy prime ministers, like one of the main scions of this. And you've got, all the rest of it. Klaus Schwab's dad and grandfather were like the number 3 arms producer for Hitler. They're not Nazis. They're rich, powerful, global dominists. Think of Dr. Evil or Blofeld. That's what that's based on. It's not art imitating life. It is art imitating life, not life imitating art. And so it's not a Nazi conspiracy or a Trotskyite conspiracy. You have the guy running Russia, one of the main geniuses. He gets kicked out by Stalin. He comes to Mexico, sets up a movement here. It's on record. Even the New York Times admits it. Has a plan to take over the U.S. by being conservative. And so what do the Trotskyites and the Azov Battalion Nazis of Ukraine have in common? They're two different groups, but they're Russophobes who are still fighting the last war, and so can also make unlimited money off of that Cold War that got launched by Churchill and by others at the end of World War II. And I'm not a Russophile. I'm not saying they're perfect either. So that's where all the money and power comes from. So it seems like ancient history, but it's not. And so it's the neocons that are Trotskyites, and then you've got the left and everybody else allied with the literal Nazi stay-behind networks and Operation Gladio in Ukraine. And what they are is seasoned political dynasties with money that believe it's their goal. Like, I'm against a lot of what Israel's doing. Israel's not perfect. But if you look at the Palestinians, none of the Arabs will take them in because the Palestinians are always just like the Trotskyites or just like the Ukrainian Nazis. They believe they're going to take over because they've been in charge of Russia. They've been in charge of Nazi Germany. Okay? So they've already had the power. Yeah. So they're already used to this. They have confidence. And they've got stolen money. So it's the same story. These are revolutionary groups that anywhere you plant them are going to try to take over. And now Zelensky is going to talk to the U.S. military tomorrow. Biden says if we don't get behind him and give unlimited money, we're going to have war within 2 months with our sons and daughters dying. And these are the ghost of World War II and the ghost of the Russian Revolution and the Soviet Union infesting us because Americans are country bumpkins. We had the good old boy George Washington that wanted to just set up a republic, be able to do his own business, not through a British lord. He was a libertarian. He couldn't do business because he wasn't a British lord. He just wanted to do business. So America's all about just do business, make everybody wealthy, get out of the way. We're like Native Americans that never been hit by smallpox.
Yeah.
So they died. We've never been hit by Nazis or never been hit by communists for real. And so they saw us as country bumpkins. Since America was the new empire at the end of World War II, they politically migrated here to recreate this, and so it is the twin axis of the Trotskyites and the whole Nazi Bilderberg remnant. Then you've got the British Empire remnant, and you've got all these other groups. And Americans really are, because despite our Civil War and all our issues, we are still country bumpkins when we face these permutations from Russia and Germany and Europe that weren't just created there. They were going back to Napoleon and Bismarck and, all the thousands of years of wars and Machiavellian crap. So we tried to get away from Europe with a free market system, but the ghost of Europe came into America, and now we've become what we tried to leave.
Do you know what's written on the back of the first penny, which I believe was designed by Ben Franklin? I have one in my kitchen.
I forget. I've got one. My grandfather gave me one. It's worth like $10,000.
It says, "Mind your business."
Yeah.
Yeah, but you bounced around a little bit. Take us from the Bilderberg Group to today, because it is pretty much a straight line. And what's interesting is, as these organizations are getting more and more powerful, you could see simultaneously the media at the time is saying that any criticism of them, crazy person, tinfoil hat, it's all fine. They just want us all to work together. And that was how the UN was sold. And now it's pretty much a given nowadays that the UN is at best a corrupt, ineffectual organization. So can you talk us through from the Bilderbergers Foundation through to today?
Well, that's right. I mean, they were having meetings right when World War II ended, but in the early 50s, the official name was Bilderberg, Oosterbeek, Holland, the hotel, and it was the remnants of the Nazis. This is in their own papers. It's not all out in the open. Like, you're right, until 15 years ago, the news would say it didn't exist. Right. Now they're like, yeah, okay, we were a post-World War II group to try to bring America, the Anglo-American Empire, the British, in with the old European elites. And it was Hitler's project for the EU, and then, that's all declassified. And so Henry Kissinger was early on one of the gophers and kind of maitre d's at Bilderberg. That's come out. And so it was just getting all these big, powerful, rich people together. It was about the Nazis had stolen so much stuff. And so, because the Trotskyites weren't involved in Bilderberg until later. And it was really an alliance between the most corrupt elements of the British Empire and the stolen wealth of the Nazis to try to create a new world corporate government system. And so Henry Kissinger, State Department Memorandum 200, and depopulation and world government, and bringing China in and building them up, and just all of this, because the average person isn't thinking global domination. If we were, we'd be just as good as them, but we just want to live our lives and open a business, and we're done because we're competent and we're confident. But these are global dominators. These are guys that play Risk every day, even in their sleep. And so that extrapolates into the CIA in 47, extrapolates into the shadow government, and it just moves into the war on drugs, with the CIA shipping in the drugs, then being the answer to the drugs, and it just goes through the whole compendium. And now they've moved on to vaccines and viruses made in labs to create the crisis. And the answers, and now there's racial division that they're hyping up. So the answer is reparations, run by the UN, and the UN was the second permutation of the League of Nations with Woodrow Wilson and the Federal Reserve. And again, it's not a UN world government where people come and voluntarily vote together. It's a totalitarian, centralized, really just rubber stamp for big corporations, as we've seen with the pandemic and the shots. And that's just where we are. We're dealing with all the old empires, all the king's courts, all the subterfuge, all the big money invested into taking over America, which they've done to a great extent, and invested in creating a new international body, to have a clearinghouse, a casino, to compromise people and buy them off. Now trying global domination again, when you can't do it when there's nuclear weapons. But they had this old instinct, and now we're like, well, we can use nukes. This time it's going to be okay. And so it's a repeat of the worst instincts. Instead of, hey, let's expand into space, let's have free energy, let's go laissez-faire, let's make it all about prosperity. But the defense contractors and all this whole money, They just can't hang it up. And so their old instincts could destroy us all, Michael.
Your Welcome is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Now, most of you listening right now are probably multitasking. Yep, while you're listening to me and whoever this is this week, you're probably also driving, cleaning, exercising, or maybe even grocery shopping. But if you're not in some kind of moving vehicle, there's something else you could be doing right now, which is getting an auto quote from Progressive Insurance. It's easy. You can save money by doing it right from your phone. Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save nearly $750 on average, and auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Discounts for having multiple vehicles on your policy, being a homeowner, and more. So just like your favorite podcast, Progressive will be with you 24/7, 365 days a year, so you're protected no matter what. Multitask right now. Quote your car insurance at Progressive.com to join the over 28 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $744 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2022 and May 2023. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations.
I'm Walter Masterson.
And I'm Maximilian Clark.
And we're basically journalists.
No, we're not.
Well, we do travel across America and interview people.
Yeah, using God to solve murders, and it's proven communication.
Tell me everything about that.
But we also dress up like extremists and sneak into their protests.
I care about children. That is why I pay my court-mandated child support.
Well, that's undercover journalism.
Okay, and that time we pretended to be Trump's legal team during the indictment?
Trump loves America. He considers us all family. That's why he's always asking us for money.
Okay, so we are not journalists. We're TikTok comedians asking questions real journalists are too smart to ask.
But we also talk to real experts and scientists and smart people and stuff.
And make fun of them.
Yeah, I guess that's why we named our show We Are Not Journalists.
Because we're better. We have a podcast.
A podcast that's available on whatever podcast app you use to get your podcasts.
Podcast.
Let's get back to the show. Were you, I don't know if you saw this, but our friend Roseanne Barr was on Bill Maher's podcast, Club Random. And Bill Maher, I didn't see the clip, I just saw the headlines, but apparently Bill Maher had never even heard of the World Economic Forum or Klaus Schwab. Bill Maher is not a dumb guy. Bill Maher is not poorly read. But I guess from the sources that he's in touch with, these names never come up. And on the other hand, you wrote a book called The Great Reset. Charlie Kirk had a pamphlet called The Great Reset. Glenn Beck had a book called The Great Reset. On the other side of the aisle, it's like 5-alarm fire. Hey, these guys are coming. They're not joking around. They're much more malevolent and dangerous than Biden or Kamala Harris ever could be. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this disconnect between something that you talk about pretty much every 2 minutes and Bill Maher not even knowing these names.
Well, I'm glad we just did the backstory. So I want to be 100% clear. The World Economic Forum is not in charge of anything but their meetings.
Okay.
They are the PR department of BlackRock, the big banks, the Federal Reserve, King Charles, who they're now openly pushing as the head guy. And Charles is an incompetent. We all know all that, but his money, his power, it's all hidden. But he's a real shareholder. So, until 15 years ago, they would say Bilderberg didn't exist, or they would just put out PR releases out of Davos. And Davos is basically Bilderberg's PR mouth, and that's what they're doing. But their real policies are cut off the general public's energy, only allow certain corporations to have access to energy. It's monopoly capitalism at its best. And then they use Marxist-Leninist ideology to control the lower masses. But the best way to describe its operating system is fascism at the top is the control arm, corporate interest above the law, tax exempt to a great extent, controlling governments, then using Marxist-Leninist ideology to control the lower masses. And Biden, Obama, when Obama was leaving office, famously traveled to Latin America, Asia, Africa, Middle East. Remember, you can pull the clips up. You can't have cars or air conditioning, the earth will heat up. And he'd also said, communism's good, but you need it to work with capitalism, a hybrid like China's communist, but then we make money as free market with it. Well, what you do is middlemen, like slavers, exploit the communist slaves to make your profit. So they're even externalizing the method here. So you had a great question. What was it?
Were you surprised that Bill Maher apparently never even heard of Klaus Schwab and WEF? Yeah.
And I wasn't surprised because he reads the New York Times, he watches Washington Journal, and it's never in there. And so they still have New York Times articles occasionally. They're very schizophrenic. Like Alex Jones claims there's a world government, a new world order, and it's run by this, but, and then meanwhile, 6 months ago, Elon Musk is at the World Government Summit where they're calling for chips in us and the human age is over and you're going to eat bugs and you're watching it. And we're going to have central bank digital currencies and we're going to control everything you do and we're going to track whatever you can buy and sell. They're saying it. The worse than I could ever even say. They're saying it. And then they're like, well, actually, none of that exists. And Elon Musk is like, I don't want world government. It gets rid of firewalls or like bulkheads in a ship. You hit one iceberg, you got bulkheads, it doesn't all flood. There's no bulkhead, everything floods. And that was a perfect answer by Elon Musk. And so they want to have this paradoxical game where there's no ruling elites, there's no powerful money that are monopoly men, but global government's going to save you. So, yeah, I mean, I think Bill Maher, some people that know him well, they've had dinner with him, and he really believes what he's saying. I think he's a very smart guy. But he's so caught as an old dog in the stream of consciousness he's in that he doesn't want to admit that above the political operation he looks at, which is very real at his level, but there's something behind the facade that's now out in the open. But yeah, she says, do you know about this? He goes, no. But the fact that he'd even ridicule her shows he knows how far behind he is. And I think it's as the Bill Mahers and the Elon Musk begin to wake up, I think that's what's going to cause a renaissance. Then the problem is they're trying to push Marxist, Leninist, you'll own nothing, you'll love it, everybody owns each other, Brave New World crap. They think we're so dumb. They're like, the Democrats are like, now we got a broken border. Terrorists are coming in. We got to totally, and again, I'm a libertarian. If we had freedom and open systems and neighboring countries that were free, we could have open borders, but we don't have that. The point is now they're suddenly worried about open borders because they know people are pissed off about it. They think we have no memory. So it's the same thing here. They think we don't know all this tyranny is going on, and they're going to try to blame some other group for it. No, we're all to blame at some level, but the big corporations have been quarterbacking destabilization, crisis creation for consolidation of power for hundreds of years, and we have nuclear weapons and biological weapons and other things. It has to stop. It has to end. We've got to have a new system, and I would postulate, as you do, anarchic capitalism, something along those lines, but you've got to get to that. So Lenin was trying to get to withering of the state the wrong way. We have to get there by deploying systems that people then adopt that then slowly phase out the old system.
Amen, brother. One of the other things, and again, this book is really written for normies. Can you explain as best you can, and you talk about this constantly, and I completely agree with you, what's the problem with having a digital currency? Because for average people, digital currency just means, hey, I go to the supermarket, I don't have to have a wallet, I just take my phone, I tap it on the screen, it's paid for, it's convenient. So, what's this crazy Alex Jones having concern with digital currency for? Again, he just hates technology and is a boomer.
Well, first off, there's no free lunch. And then number two, because they're promising you a bunch of extra credit if you do it, I am for Bitcoin. I think it's beautiful and wonderful as long as there's a bunch of real alternatives. I get we're in the Wild West, so it's been a bunch of pump and dumps. We're not transported to a state of liberty on a bed of feathers, as Thomas Jefferson said. So I want Bitcoin, but I want a bunch of alternatives because I don't want a centralized system, i.e. a Federal Reserve or a UN or a EU or a communist China central thing. So out of the gates, the central banks are saying, we're going to have a global centralized currencies and competing currencies that are all nexus together with Bill Gates setting up the protocols that controls where you can spend it, values how much it is, and you lose control and we surveil you. The answer to that is a decentralized system where you'll end up getting a bunch of trusted currencies, and maybe there's 100 of them, maybe there's 1,000 of them by the time we're done, and then people decide what they're going to do. So I believe digital currencies are the holy grail, but decentralized digital currencies are what we need. And so I oppose all the central bank digital currencies. I oppose movements to have Bitcoin be the preeminent only thing. I want legitimate, used, tested, diverse systems, and it's the answer to the old tyranny. It's like getting rid of apartheid. Terrible. So you get rid of the central bank, fractional reserve banking, Federal Reserve model, and then you bring in a central bank digital currency 1,000 times worse. No, 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 no. You don't replace apartheid with Marxist-Leninism. You've got to replace the old fractional reserve system with a diversified system of private cryptocurrencies.
Well, so yeah, so can you explain? That's what I was getting at. Can you explain to people why you are opposed to? And I would agree with everything you say. I'm sure what you're about to say. What is wrong with a federal-backed central digital currency that instead of having dollars in your wallet, you have a digital currency that the government controls?
I mean, it's like having one grocery store in the whole country. They're going to gouge you. They're going to rip you off. They're going to have fixing prices. It's going to be controlled. It's going to be a mafia. It's going to be terrible. You don't want one doctor in your town.
Right.
You don't want, one movie production house. Anything that's centralized is always the worst possible thing on earth. Even if up front it's not, it'll be taken over. It'll become where all the grifters go. There'll be a big fight over it, maybe even a war over it. You don't want governments involved in currencies, period. I mean, I believe in the future, you don't want one corporation that can operate as a government. That's where libertarians, a lot of them get it wrong. Like, oh, this corporation, well, if it's bigger than the government and operates like a government, it's just as bad. So what I want is Elon Musk to have a currency. And I want American Airlines to have a currency.
Yeah.
And I want the federal government to have 50 currencies. And I want McDonald's to have a currency. I want Michael Malice to have a currency. And then they'll all have different values. They'll all be out there. And then it gives us all diversity, and we can decide which one we like. And over time, whatever gives the best service, whatever's the best, will become the basket of currencies we use. And then that takes the power of money away, where you get everything just because you control the money like a central bank. Now it's about the ideas, the culture, the inventions, and it empowers the individual.
What of your past predictions do you think you've gotten the most wrong?
You know, I got to be honest. I'm following the arc of history. It is not. I mean, I've gotten almost everything right. I've been sucked in. Here's what I got wrong. WikiLeaks comes out a month before the 2016 election, and it's hardcore emails. No one's denying it. Telling the top Democrats in upstate New York, we're going to deliver 7 and 8-year-old children to you. They're trained, but they may still give you a problem, but they're ready to entertain you. And it's bad. And then the New York Times, the Washington Post, and CNN go, oh, look, a pizza place. They got dungeons. They're doing this. And we all run to that instead of the real thing, and then it discredits the real thing. And it was the same thing. They had the school safety experts and all these professors. Oh, this mass shooting didn't happen. I barely ever covered it. But then they could go back and make that who I was. So what I've learned is anything that kind of, a lot of organic stuff's great. But whatever the new kind of 4chan fed, we later learned it was the CIA thing, is usually a distraction. Like, I mean, I was wise to this when Q came along. And, you know, oh, Trump's invincible and Biden will be arrested on Inauguration Day. And I went after it. And, you know, they said, oh, Q, rise up and all this. That was the CIA. We now know that. So, yeah, they just, anything too good to be true is. The world's too complex. Any panacea is a lie. That's why we need 100 currencies, not, oh, the one perfect one. And I love Bitcoin. I'm just saying, I don't want a central bank digital currency, and I don't want Bitcoin to be the only one. And the Bitcoin guys get mad. They go, oh, well, there's a problem. It's the best. I don't want one thing. I want at least 5 choices. And, you know, 100's better. 1,000's even better.
I had Jake Angeli, who was the January 6th shaman, on my show a couple of times. He's out on probation. I wanted to ask, I was on the fence about something. I realized I have access to the greatest person on earth to ask, which is you. As a former someone born in the Soviet Union, if he comes to Austin and I let him crash at my place, am I making a huge mistake, in your professional opinion?
No, I don't think he's part of Operation Trust, you know, that it's gone on before in the Soviet Union.
No, I just meant like as a Soviet, me being suspicious. Like, am I going to get on some list and I'm going to get audited, or they're going to come to my house? Do you know what I mean? I mean,
Michael, you're already on a list, good and bad. I mean, everybody knows you're a really well thought out, smart guy. No, I think Jacob Chomsley's a good guy. I think like anybody that's gotten famous out of nowhere, he's a little bit having delusions of grandeur. I'll say that to his face. Because, you know, I've had him like call up and say, hey, have me on right now or whatever. No, I think he's a good guy. I think he's a funny guy. He got set up that day. He tried to shut it down. So I think you're totally safe hanging out. In fact, let's go to get dinner together. I'd love to meet him in person.
Okay, that'll be great. I know you've got another. Hold on, I got another one question. Tell me about the two books, because people, again, you're so radioactive, yet you got book deals with major publishers. Can you explain what that process was like? Because I know when you tried to do a book with Neil Strauss, it was huge news. People got in trouble. I think some even lost their jobs. And it's like, no, this guy's radioactive. And now it's front and center on Amazon. It's selling. When I looked, it was like number 27 on Amazon, which is no joke. So can you explain how that happened? Are you no longer radioactive in terms of corporate publishing?
Well, what happened is it was okay with the media and the system when I was being beat up and intimidated. But now the arrogance has gotten so bad. It's like the French Revolution. It was really popular the first year, but a couple of years later, they were killing the leaders of the French Revolution. I'm not saying do that. I'm saying that's what happened. And so, yeah, Neil Strauss came. They had this top publisher. They had one of the most famous top 5 agents. And CNN had a mole inside the huge publisher and got him fired and others fired and basically blackballed Neil Strauss over it. We're just trying to write a book about Alex Jones and the secret history of the world. I mean, obviously, I'm the big black sheep. I'm the guy to write a book about. And then now, since they've attacked so many people, Tony Lyons and Skyhorse is an imprint. I think it's Simon & Schuster. So he's been able to put some of the books out. The first one is The Great Reset and the War for the World. The new one is The Great Awakening. I hope people all get it at Infowars.com, because I'm barely paying my bills, even though the show's exploded. And they're good books. They're informative. But really, it's just about being focused on the fact that we're all part of the new Renaissance. We're all part of the Great Awakening. This is not some perfect battle plan like communist bean counters create. It's about us demanding change, being informed, demanding quality, and demanding a free society. And so I hope people do get the Great Awakening. And I hope they tune into my show. They follow me on X, back on X at Real Alex Jones.
Yeah, I really endorse this book. I'm going to get the new one, Alex. And when I read it, I'm going to have you back on to discuss it. I know you got hard out right now. Now, Alex, before I let you go, I want to encourage everyone to head over to malice.locals.com, where you're going to be answering questions from supporters. Alex, running out of time, what has been your favorite part of this interview?
Just talking to you, and I appreciate you putting up with me, because I've been up since 5 a.m. this morning, and everything's so hot right now. I've done a whole bunch of interviews, and I'm cross-eyed, but you got me excited, and I really look forward to having dinner with you and Jacob Chomsley, and maybe some of our other mutual friends. And so, Michael, I appreciate you, and I think I'm going to come back tomorrow. I'll put the same blue shirt on. Yeah. We're going to take some questions from the audience.
You are welcome.
Hold on to your jingle bells. Pluto TV has all your holiday favorites for free. Enjoy Christmas classics like Scrooge with Bill Murray or Last Holiday with Queen Latifah. Plus, dive into festive channels like Holiday Movie Favorites by Lifetime or Hallmark Movies and more. Download the Pluto TV app on all your favorite devices and start streaming holiday favorites on live channels and on demand. With thousands of free movies and TV shows, Pluto TV is your home for the holidays. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.